Two. I call Chris Farfoy.
Oh, here we go.
Mr Chair, can I begin by following the fashion of Charles Chevelle and Simon Bridges by acknowledging the Minister Simon Power since his announcement to not seek re-election. I think everyone would agree that on both sides of the House that he's a minister that's well respected, and even in my former trade, he's a politician that was as well respected too. So I wish him all the best.
Thanks, Chris.
Now, in terms of his last contribution, I'd just like to touch on around the affordability of providing what we're trying to achieve in the bill, and in terms of looking at something around a $405 million shortfall to actually give this bill teeth. And that is something that the Labour Party, while we give broad support to this bill, will be watching very closely, because without that resource to back up what is in this bill, we won't be able to achieve it. I think in Part 2, the most important part of it is Clause 9, Subpart 1, which basically streamlines the granting of legal aid when grants are or aren't or are likely to be under the amount set by regulations. Now, that basically will allow people who don't have the means to seek legal aid to be granted legal aid. Of course, then achieving purpose of the bill. Now, as the member for Mana, we are, of course, home to the Porirua District Court. It's a court that I'm proud to say does try and work, where all parties try and work towards a strong collaborative relationship and for the community. And therefore, this bill will be acutely felt by those who work there every day, like the Whitireia Community Law Centre, and for family lawyers like Peter Foster, who's based out of Raumati. So in terms of the purpose of this bill, to provide legal services to people of insufficient funds, Clause 9, Subpart 1 of Part 2 of this bill is absolutely fundamental. Now, for those people in my electorate who I am very worried about, who don't necessarily have the sufficient means to seek legal help, this will be very important because it is one less hoop to jump through. But as I said before, when I was addressing the issue of affordability, if we do not have the resource to give it to them, that this bill will have no teeth. And fewer hoops for those people that I'm most concerned about is very important because they are facing increasing costs. Grant Robertson before mentioned that these people that we are talking about, unfortunately, the fact that they have insufficient means is half the reason that they're turning up to court. Because they are facing increased power prices, increased food bills, increased petrol prices, and the cost of living is going up, so these people are finding themselves before the courts, whether it be because of rat-bag lenders, whether it be their own banks that are calling in debts, or whether it be collection agencies. Some of these people are turning up to court because they have insufficient funds and insufficient means, and when they get to court, they are going to need the assistance of this legislation to make sure that they can be represented in an adequate way before a court. Now, as I said about Clause 9, Subpart 1, that will take the pressure off those people with insufficient means. And therefore, as I said before, achieving the goal of the purpose of the Act to promote access to justice by establishing a system that provides legal services to people of insufficient means. And unfortunately, for me as the member for Mana, most of the people unfortunately that are turning up to the Porirua District Court are people who have insufficient means. So this piece of legislation is very important to them. It is very important to them, and that's why, as I said, during the election campaign that I was victorious in, that I would fight for them. And that's why I'm addressing this part of the bill to make sure that those people who are struggling to make ends meet, which is not being made any better by this national government, do have the means to get adequate access to justice. Now, as I think it was David Parker pointed out before, as we address the issue of affordability, one way to make sure that we can make up that shortfall of around $405 million to make sure that we do achieve the goal of this legislation is to have a look at one of the fishhooks that comes about by the three strikes policy in this legislation. Those who are accused of a serious crime will have no other option other than to plead not guilty. And then we face the situation where we have long and protracted cases sucking on the very valuable resources that we need to make sure that are going to the people who actually need it. As I said, Clause 9, Subpart 1 of Part 2 of this bill is the fundamental part of this bill to achieve its goal. And I will support any move to make sure that we can get enough of the resource, enough of the funding to make sure we can achieve the purpose of the bill here, to provide legal services to people of insufficient means, which unfortunately are coming in and out of the Poro District Court every day.
Call Grant Robertson.